afternoon, everybody. It's Rhonda again, coming at you around some different conversations about mortgage resets. Well, I know we've talked a little bit about this before, but I just felt it was a really good time to circle back and talk about it again because I'm hearing a lot from not just my clients, but out in the market and from networking that I'm working with people in that they're hearing not just from themselves, but from people they know that they're really quite concerned about their mortgages coming up for renewal. And instead of making that call and talking to your mortgage broker and your advisor, they're sort of burying their heads in the sand, hoping that things will change. And then we get down to that last minute, and now we're scrambling to try and get you into the right mortgage so that your mortgage doesn't flip into an open mortgage at 7-8% interest rate until we can get it sorted. So my guidance and advice before we get into today's topic is, take a look at when your mortgage is coming up for renewal. Take a look at what you've got for, debts that may need consolidated. How do we restructure things to free up cash flow? If you've got a mortgage that's coming up for renewal within the next 6 to 12 months, let's sit down and start talking now because it's never too early to start having those conversations. And, we could tweak and move as we go, but we don't want to get to that finish line and not have a plan in place. So that's what we're going to circle back on today. Really appreciate all of your feedback. I appreciate all of your subscribing, following me means a ton to me. Also in my community chats, by all means, put some stuff in there that you'd really like me to focus on or take and build some conversations out around because it's all about you. It's all about the education on what you're needing. And I'm just here to help guide you through it and make it a good day for you. So circling back a bit, we talked about the reset of mortgages. So again, we look at over the next 12 to 24 months, we've got over 1 million Canadians that are going to be renewing their mortgages. And as I talked about earlier, many are not prepared for what that actually means and a little scared about it. And I understand that our rates have really changed. Our economy has really changed, but, embrace that. Take that opportunity and, mitigate that fear. Let's get in front of each other and talk about it so that you can make those right decisions, best decisions for you. So again, the conversation, it's not about the fear. It is about the clarity. It's about the control, and it's about making the confident decisions, which is what my goal is to provide you with all of that ammunitions, conversations, decisions on how you can make that confident decision about yourself. So when we look back, we look back 3-5 years from now, we were in COVID. We were going along and our interest rates were really good. And many homeowners locked in around 1.5% to 2%. So, when you fast forward to today, renewals are closing anywhere from 4, 5, and upwards %. And that's not just a small shift in changes in the dynamics of not only the interest rate on your home, but that's going to impact your cash flow. And it can impact your cash flow to the point of you're not really sure where you're going to get your next mortgage payment from. You're not really sure on how you're going to put food on the table. And again, that's where I want to circle back and talk about how do we work through this together? How do we build some clarity around it? How do we make it where you can sleep at night? Hundreds and thousands of dollars a month more is what it's going to cost with the new renewal rates. And that's just reality. And I'm not saying that to scare anybody. I'm telling you that as an educated conversation to make that decision to sit down and not panic about it, but let's get ourselves in a position where we're prepared for these changes that are coming into your life. And, I'd love to hear some feedback as I talk about this. I really want to hear feedback from you guys that are my audience out there, my followers, subscribers. Let me know, go into my community chat. Let me know what you're thinking. If you've got a mortgage coming up for renewal, if you're thinking of purchasing a home, what's on your mind? How can we have those conversations? We take a look at our economic landscape. Inflation is cooling, but it's still present. And when I say it's cooling, it's slowing down a little bit, but inflation is still there, and our inflation is growing. A lot of our investments are not keeping up with inflation. And that's where people are making that decision of, oh, I'm going to cash my investments in to pay down my house. But that's not always the best decision either, because as we're sitting in the present state right now, talking to a financial advisor as well and working together with me on both sides of that, um, we can look at what your investments are doing. It may not be the right decision because as we get older in life and we go through life, even when we're in our mid 30s and stuff like that, the money that we've saved, we've lost traction in being able to build that back. So I'm not saying no, don't cash in the investments. I'm just saying let's take a look at them. And if they're not meeting what the inflation rates are, let's take a look at that. So as inflation is cooling, but it's still present there, interest rates are stabilizing, but not dropping dramatically, especially when it comes to fixed rates. We've seen fixed rates bouncing pretty rapidly around in the days that we've had in front of us. We've seen interest rates, fixed rates that were climbing while Bank of Canada was staying cautious and kept prime rate, Bank of Canada rate at stable. But the banks were coming out with the fixed rates increasing a bit. So that's aligned with the bond yields. So now what we're seeing too is, over the last week and a half, I've seen a fair few of the fixed rates starting to come down a little bit. Not huge, but enough that, the size of our average mortgages are anywhere from 500, 700 to 800,000 a year. And even those little small basis points, whether it's 0.10 basis points, whether it's 25 basis points, and 25 is a huge swing, and that's not reality out there. But that really frees up the difference in your cash flow and can make a difference of hundreds of dollars in what your new payments are. So while we're transitioning into this phrase, any transitions are where strategy matters the most. So as we're transitioning and thinking about, do I renew into a fixed rate mortgage? Do I transition into a variable rate? Because we know there's a few more Bank of Canada announcements that are coming down the line towards before the end of the year. And we don't know what's going to happen. We know that, our world right now is in a pretty critical situation. When we look at the turmoil that's out there, we look at the wars that are out there, we look at Canada's economy and we look at the US's economy and our worldwide economy. We're all struggling. We're all in the depth of despair, not to sound doom and gloom, but we don't know what the government's going to do. And that's where, these transitions, we need to be strategically thinking about what our next steps are. And I'm circling back on, you're not alone in this. There's so many people that are out there, but it's so important that you get in front of someone that you trust, that is real with you, that will, work with you individually and not sugarcoat things, but not give you the doom and gloom either. Because the reality is, the more you're prepared, the better your decisions are going to be able to make those sound decisions and confidently make them. So what's the strategy on this? I've talked a little bit about it. You've heard it a lot in my podcast, and sometimes I feel like I'm just repeating myself, but I know that it's really important information. And I know there's a lot of information that comes at us every day. So I do want to kind of take some time and, just repeat a few things. The strategy on it is a lot of people default to renewing. The bank sends you out that piece of paper, and instead of, doing a little bit of homework, a little bit of footwork, reaching out to a mortgage consultant, reaching out to a financial advisor, a lot of times more often than not, I'm going to say people are just signing their renewals. And that's the easy way, most optimal way. They don't have to, do more credit applications, look at, yeah, if there's a better rate, I've got to potentially do an appraisal on my house. I've got legal fees. But all of that is output, absolutely. But when you're looking at different rates, you a lot of times can save more money than you're actually putting out on your switch to a new financial institution or lending facilities. So, it will pardon me, excuse me, it will offset what you're putting out of your pocket when it comes to legal fees and it comes to appraisals and it comes to all of that other stuff that lines up with it. You're going to find that just different rates and different strategies can be built out that'll save you money in the long term when you're looking at 3, 4, and 5 year rates. So some of the options that are included when we're restructuring your mortgage, it's a really good time to look at what is your plans for your home ownership. Are you planning to stay in that home? Have you paid years off? You maybe started with a 25-year amortization or even a 30-year amortization, and you're 10 years into it, and rates have changed so drastically that, do we look at extending that amortization back out? Or do we look at using equity to improve your cash flow to pay off some of your other other debts and commitments that are costing you each month? Do we look at restructuring that into your mortgage? And the options in paying your mortgage, yes, not everybody wants to extend the amortization because our goal is eventually to pay our house off. But life happens. And we don't have control of what life happens, but we do have control of the decisions we make that are going to work for us. And it's not forever when we extend that mortgage amortization out. It's not forever when we put those other outstanding debts into our mortgage. It's not something that you have to have forever. There are ways that you can increase your payments, even just a slight amount, not by thousands of dollars a month, but even by $100 a month. And, we can look at that strategy of how fast we can pay down that mortgage to get you back to where you were and your goal of paying your mortgage off. We can do weekly payments, bi-weekly payments, monthly payments, whatever's going to work for you. And I can show you the calculations when we sit down together of how quickly you can pay that mortgage off, even if we amortize it out. So don't look at that and just say, well, I'm not prepared to do that. It might make the difference of giving you that comfort of being in your home and sleeping at night, knowing that you can make those payments and your family still is able to live the life that you're enjoying now, whether that be one holiday a year, whether that be the kids are playing 2 or 3 different sports. And I mean, sports is very, very expensive. Music lessons, anything, art lessons, whatever the children are doing, whatever you're doing in your life, you don't want to have to stop that to just be able to remain in your home or have to sell your home to downsize to keep that up. There's so many different conversations we can have, and everybody's conversation is unique and it's tailored to who you are, what's important to you, and how do we make it all come together. So this is where mortgages meets financial planning, and that's where real power happens.